Hi there, Agile friends. Get ready for the World Tour of Agile at the Agile Online Summit 2023. You can join us from October 24th to 26th for a global showcase of cutting-edge Agile practices and insights. Join us at agileonlinesummit.com. This year, we will be featuring some of the best work done around the world and world-class keynotes. You can check all of that at agileonlinesummit.com. But the best part is that your ticket is on us. That's right, it's free to attend and immerse yourself in the world of Agile excellence. Don't miss out on this opportunity to level up your skills and network with peers and industry experts. Mark your calendars and secure your spot at AOS 23 today by visiting agileonlinesummit.com. So get your free ticket or opt for the full digital pass that lets you keep all the conference videos forever and organize, why not, Agile learning sessions at work. You can get the full digital access at agileonlinesummit.com. I'll see you in the conference floor. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Tom Siebeneicher. Hey, Tom, welcome back.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So Tuesday is, of course, the Team Tuesday day here on the podcast. But before we dive into the teams, do share with us, Tom, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, I think there are so many books I read, and it's always really hard to choose one. But if I have to choose, I think it's The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Because it gave me so much insight and so much trigger points I could use to think about MVP and how to also be more radical about testing and just explore things. Because I'm from Germany, I'm so much tied to planning, make a big plan and get everything prepared before you do it, that just reading it and reflecting on the fact that why not testing? Why not radically test? Because you will get this feedback was a great insight for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And this plan-driven mentality that we very often have, especially like you, if you have a background in classic project management, it really hinders the learning process, right? Because one of the theoretical aspects of project management, I call myself a recovering project manager, by the way, so full disclosure, because I was trained as a project manager. And one of the things that the plan-driven mindset removes is the ability to learn, or it doesn't remove it. It just delays it so much that it has very little impact then later on, right? Like if you do a plan, then you're trying to always revert back to the plan when something goes wrong. But if what we do is small experiments like the Lean Startup talks about, then we learn and evolve our approach all the time, which is what Agile is talking about, then we don't need to be right all the time. But for plans to succeed, we need to be right all the time. And of course, once I say that, it becomes quite obvious that, no one can be right all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And quite often I also say, let's make a plan so that the plan can derail and we learn from it. So this is also quite often the behavior I see, and it makes everyone smile, but it's exactly like it is, because you never have a plan you can execute 100% as you did it, because things change, things come together, people are involved, it doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there something else from the book that you would like to leave our listeners with? So we talked about stepping away from the plan-driven mentality, focusing more on testing and even radical testing, learning and experiments. Is there something that you think people often miss when they read the book, but was really important for you?
I think the other thing is, which I found really, really important, is never forget to measure and learn from it. Because quite often, especially agility, is this behavior. Yeah, you cannot measure it. It's a people thing. People change. People need to do certain things, but you still can measure surroundings or certain things you like to have. So, for example, are the people more happy, or do we have less defects, or I don't know, is our lead time reduced? And that you can combine testing with measuring also these certain behaviors and then learn from it. So having this repetitive cycle, this was a great insight for me, because I tended to say, let's not measure the people happiness, because they will click a button and maybe sometimes, it's the wrong foot in the morning, so they are not happy. And sometimes they jump up, have the right coffee, and they are happy. It's hard. And I'm still not a big fan of measuring human, let's say, feelings, emotions. but overall measuring things which can give you insights in which direction you pivot are really valuable, and it never ends.
Absolutely. And the key thing is measure and learn, not just
Yes.
measure. That's a very good point. Right. So let's dive into the teams, Tom, and talk about maybe a pattern, a behavior that emerged on that team you were working with that maybe started as a small thing, an off comment in a meeting, but eventually started growing and became a problem. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I think for me, I've seen one team a while ago, must be now 2 years ago, roughly, which have been working together for 3 years. So quite stable team. So 3 years, no member went out, went in, and so forth. And what I saw in this particular team was, for me, quite interesting because I came in as a coach for the reason that actually the Scrum Master and the product owner are not getting along. So that was the trigger. That was the reason why I came into that team. But quite soon I recognized between them, there's actually no issue. They get along, they have different characters, but that's human, that's fine. But the team was sticking to the rituals. So they would have a planning, they have a review, they have a retrospective, they have improvements, they do. But what I sensed is that while reviewing the retrospective backlog is that they moved away from the Scrum Guide quite far, which can be good. I don't say that it's bad per se, but it was interesting to see how far they moved away. So instead of saying, okay, we have an issue here, let's pivot a little bit and see if it works. And if it doesn't, we pivot back to what, let's say, the Scrum Guide says. They pivoted back, it doesn't work. Let's pivot further away. And step by step, they moved away from the core values about transparency, alignment, and so forth, and ended up being, I would say, yeah, nearly to a waterfall team again, because they had plannings, they had milestones, they had all this stuff. If you open the Pinbook guide, and you will probably know best as well, it's 600 pages, and I think half of the pages they knew and they would act like it.
Well, wait a minute. So this is very interesting. So you're saying that the team started with Scrum, and through the retrospective, they started pivoting and even getting away from what Scrum used to be. Now,
yes,
when you were saying that, I was wondering, but wait a minute, what was the driver, right? Because I mean, like I have no idea of what would make a team get away from Scrum and into a waterfall-like process. Like, what was the driver for that?
and I think tiny things, because during the retrospective, they always reflected, okay, what went good, what went bad in the last sprint, which is a totally fair question to begin with. But for example, sometimes they said, yeah, well, we delivered too late on the test environment. It always needs to be a Tuesday. So instead of questioning why it always needs to be a Tuesday and what kind of process is behind it, so really digging into the root cause, they would just say, let's fix the symptom by, okay, from now on, our delivery day is Tuesday. And then they would test that. And if it doesn't work, they would further build something around it instead of pivoting back to what is the actual root cause. So why do we think we can improve things and act on that? So they would just fix the symptom with the next step, sometimes away from Scrum, sometimes they would get closer. But yeah, it was really hard, and
was it so that the symptoms were kind of building on each other? Like, you know, they did something to fix a symptom, then that something they did create another symptom, then they did something to handle that symptom, and so on?
I would say at the beginning, it was not the case. At the beginning, it was really, okay, we have something we want to improve, so let's do something about it. But over time, because they have been working for 3 years and longer together, it was really the new fix, just make the symptoms stronger, and then they found another fix. And after a while, observing them, I said, okay, let's do a simple practice. Let's take the Scrum Guide and let's see, what are you doing like Scrum and what are you not doing like Scrum. So we really dived into the rituals and said, okay, what are the values? What are the rituals? So what should you do in the respective meetings? So what is the recommendation? And again, I tried to comfort them in the way that I said, it's not bad if you pivoted away. There might be a good reason for you as a team, but what they recognize is that they had so much stuff where they are so far away from what should we do in the planning, what should we do in the review. And they said, actually, the core idea is way better. Let's go back to that. So they really did a, let's say, call it Scrum reset after a while, and got rid of so much stuff they have been frustrated about. But over time, they said, we really need to ensure that we do this. And I think nowadays they do it every half a year, this little reset. Let's check if we are still a Scrum team or are we just an undercover waterfall team, which was really interesting to see.
That is actually a great tip, by the way. Do a Scrum reset every 6 months. I was actually thinking as you were telling the story that a very useful thing is to once in a while have a meta retrospective, because what you were describing, like this focusing on the symptoms and solving them, is actually what we call single loop learning, right? So we do something and we learn about what we do and then we improve what we do. But double loop learning, we ask, why are we doing this in the first place? Is this still relevant? Should we drop it all together, right? And this double loop learning needs a proper space, because very often we are like working on something concrete and we want to tackle that something concrete. And that's right, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not enough. Over time, we will need to come back and ask, why did we do this? Why was this solution thought to be useful when, in fact, after measuring it and observing, we actually found it not to be so effective? So I think that double loop retrospective, or as you said, a Scrum reset every 6 months, is a great idea to add to our toolbox as we talk about it here on the podcast. And then the other thing that came to mind was, this sounds like they were actually doing stuff to improve, which is great, but they were not actually measuring something outside what they did. So let's give a concrete example. So maybe we are focusing on releasing every Tuesday, but we are not focusing on figuring out if overall the process is getting better, right? Because you can optimize for releasing on Tuesday and then deliver 0 features every sprint. Right? And you're still releasing, it's just nothing new is coming out. And I think that that's the other part of the double loop learning, which is what is outside the process that we are trying to get. For example, on-time delivery would be one, but it could also be having less dependencies, having less bugs in the field, better coordination with other teams, whatever that is, something else outside that delivery that we are trying to do. And then always ask, are we getting that? Right? Are we getting what we want overall? What do you think about that?
You're exactly right. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's that exactly this, they didn't thought about, okay, let's change something, let's improve, but how do we measure? How do we ensure that what we are doing is actually improving things? Because they just did this little improvement and then hope that this, let's say, this feeling of, for example, getting a complaint that I didn't release on a Tuesday, is going away. Because as you said, they sometimes released little to nothing on a Tuesday, but the release manager wouldn't complain because they released something. But is it helpful? No, and they didn't measure that. And after we did a learning loop and this reset, they also said, well, let's rather not release on Tuesday if we have nothing valuable, and see if we can slice also our backlog in a better way, that we actually either release every other week something really valuable, or we need a different. So they really started thinking about it. And I also don't want to lay it on the Scrum Master totally, because it was a really experienced person. It was more like so much day-to-day business comes up for them and for him as well, that he said after, well, you're right, we should have done this way earlier, but I was so busy with helping with the improvements we agreed in every retrospective that I just didn't thought about it. So sometimes I think it's also great. This is why I so much appreciate podcasts and also conferences, to get out of this day-to-day real, right? Because yes, we all have a day-to-day job, and then you get stuck in this behavior and you might be happy, but you don't see the things around you.
Absolutely. Great story. And hopefully this episode will help some of you out there get out of the day-to-day thinking and really think one level up, right? That's awesome. Yes. Thank you very much for sharing that story, Tom.
Welcome.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.